Mental Health Warriors. You are listening to Crafting Mental Health, Episode 5. Hey there, my mental health warrior friends, family, and anybody who's new to my podcast. Welcome to this week's episode. If you're new, I hope you enjoy the podcast so far. And if you have any questions, please reach out. You can find me on Facebook. I'm still working on all the other platforms for now, but you can find me on Facebook. I have a group called Crafting Mental Health Podcast, and you can find me there. It's a public group, so you can just join in whenever you feel like it. And in there, you can send me a message if you like. You can also email me at craftingmentalhealthpodcast@gmail.com. So yeah, please reach out if you have any questions or even suggestions for what you guys would like to hear on the show or on the podcast, or questions you would like me to ask every week. For those of you who don't know, I have a question at the end of every episode that I ask, and then the following week I will answer that question. And sometimes it's hard questions, like really you got to think about it. Other times it's just a fun one. So last week's question was, if you could switch places with someone for a day, switch lives with someone for a day, who would it be and why? So for me, I would like to switch places with Catherine, the Princess of Wales, or the Duchess of Wales, Prince William's wife. I forget what her official title is, but and the reason why I want to switch places with her for a day is simply just to see what her everyday looks like. How much of real life does she experience in terms of with her kids? How much is she really involved in the everyday life of her kids? She looks like she's very involved, and her kids are very well behaved, which that's kind of probably expected of them. But they do look like they are having somewhat of a more normal childhood. But yes, I would like to see how her everyday life is and how much help she has from staff, and does she and William at the end of the day lay on the couch and binge watch something on Netflix? Is that on their to-do list, of things to do? I'm just curious. If someone can answer that for me, that would be awesome. So yeah, that was last week's question. I loved reading you guys' answers. I really appreciate all the participation. I really enjoy it. So with that being said, let's kick off with this week's topic, which is PTSD Explained. And so as you guys probably noticed, I have had a couple of episodes now where I'm explaining some type of mental health disorder. And I'm going to have quite a few more of those where I just explain what it is, because a lot of people may have heard the term, but because they are not struggling with that mental health, or they don't know anybody who struggles with it, they may not know what it is or how it impacts a person's life. A lot of the ones that I'm talking about at this point is what I'm going through in my life. So it's, from my personal perspective, my personal experience. Eventually there will be ones that I need to do a lot of research with because I don't know it. I've never dealt with it. And then, eventually, as I've mentioned before, I want to have interviews with people and ask, for those that has certain mental health issues or experience certain mental health problems, have interviews with them to see it from their perspective, because how I experience something is completely different than you would. Everybody experiences things different, and everybody has their own opinion, and that's perfectly fine. I want everybody to have their own opinion about things, and we can all live together and have our own opinions. We don't have to share the same opinion to, be under the same roof. That's what makes us all so special, is the fact that we can think for ourselves and have our own opinions and our own thoughts, and, and just talk to each other about it and teach each other. I can explain to you my point of view, and I can still understand your point of view. But I think I'm digressing here a little bit. But so yeah, I just wanted to, say all that. Okay, so back on topic. PTSD Explained. So a little bit of research that I've done is, so apparently about 3.5% of the U.S. population is affected by PTSD in some time of their life. So it's 1 in 11 people will be diagnosed with PTSD at some point in their life. And it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad that there's so many people that experience PTSD, because what causes it is trauma. That's the main thing that causes trauma. It's, PTSD is a psychiatric disorder, and it may occur in people who experience or has witnessed a traumatic event. Examples of this would be, examples of these traumatic events would be, like a natural disaster or an accident, terrorist attacks, war or combat, rape and sexual assault, historical trauma, and then also partner violence or bullying or like domestic violence. So, there's a lot of things that can cause PTSD. And basically how I explained it to people, when you have PTSD, it's your whole body experiences it. So when you go through this trauma, your whole body experiences the trauma, and every cell in your body experiences it. So PTSD, what happens is years later, when you may have dealt with the issue that happened, let's say it was an accident, a car accident. You may have dealt, you got better, you got out of the hospital, the car is fixed, everything is great, and you're fine, you're driving again. But then every time you get to that intersection where that car accident happened, you get extremely anxious and you almost feel like you're back in that same situation that you were. And the reason for that is mentally you have dealt with the accident. However, because every cell in your body has experienced the accident, when you are triggered or when you're back at a place that would trigger you, your body is reliving the moment, the traumatic event. That's why you feel numb and you feel sweaty and heart's racing. Purely because your whole body is back into that moment where you felt that traumatic event or where you experienced that traumatic event. And that's what PTSD is, really. It's post-traumatic stress disorder. That's what it stands for somebody who didn't know. So PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's after the traumatic event, you're still experiencing stress because every cell in your body is still experiencing that, and you need to find a way to treat your whole body in order to get past it. And there are treatments that has been successful. One treatment that I myself have looked into and I want to do at some point is called EMDR. EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So basically, it's a treatment that is very successful with war veterans who suffer severely with PTSD. And from what I understand is once you've gone through the treatment, that trauma is completely gone. You won't be triggered again. So I'm really interested to try this treatment out for myself with the PTSD stuff that I'm dealing with. And like I've mentioned in previous episodes, that I'm going to have interviews with people. I actually have a friend that's gone through EMDR treatment, so I'm really excited for that episode. So stay tuned, and we will be learning more about EMDR. Okay, back to PTSD and what it is. So with the symptoms of PTSD, it can be categorized into 4 different categories. The first one is intrusion. Second is avoidance. Third is alteration in cognitive and mood. And then the fourth one is alteration in arousal and reality. And that was an interesting one for me. I haven't heard that term before, but let's look into more detail what each of these are. So the intrusion category is where you have intrusive thoughts. You keep repeating the memory of the traumatic event. You may have dreams of the event or the trauma that happened, flashbacks. And, especially with war veterans, the flashbacks can be so real that they feel that they are back in the war zone. They almost see everything as it's happening. Like I said before, it's because your whole body experienced that trauma, and your whole body, every single cell in your body can transport you back to that moment where the traumatic event happened. The second category, the avoidance, basically that is just, you're avoiding the reminders or avoiding people that can cause triggers, or avoiding places, activities. You're basically avoiding thinking about what happened or saying that it didn't happen. And unfortunately, until you acknowledge that a traumatic event has happened and you feel it and you sit in it for a while, that's the only way you're going to heal from it. So avoiding it, obviously, is not going to help. Yes, it can help for a little while, but eventually, it's going to cause other problems, and it's going to come out in moments that's worse than just dealing with it head on. The third category of symptoms are alterations in cognitive and mood. So sometimes you can't, you're unable to remember parts of the event, like having temporary amnesia from what happened, because the event has been so traumatic that your brain is trying to protect you from it by not remembering what happened. But again, because your whole body has experienced the trauma or the event, your body is going to still experience that. Even if your mind doesn't remember, you're going to one day walk into a store and something is going to trigger you and you're not going to understand why. So if you've gone through a traumatic experience, whether you can remember everything or not, seek help with a trained counselor to figure out what it is that happened, so that you can talk about it and deal with it, and, make sure that you are healthy mentally and physically. Another thing in the third category that is you'll have negative thoughts or negative self-talk. Like you're going to say that, I'm bad. It's my fault if I didn't do this, or if I just did that. Especially if you think about rape victims, they often feel after the fact, if I only did this, or if I only did that, or, if I didn't look at him at that way, if I didn't say this or say that, then, this wouldn't have happened. And then, then there's also the feelings of like, you can't trust anyone anymore because, you trusted that one person and they hurt you so bad that you just don't want to trust anyone. And that can cause feelings of detachment, and you can become estranged from people, and you can start isolating yourself. And that is not healthy either. And then the fourth category is arousal and reality. And basically what this is, it comes out as irritation or anger outburst. You don't understand why you're so irritable or why you're so angry. It doesn't make sense. You behave recklessly. Some people even have destructive behavior, like doing things that purposely put them in harm's way. You're easily startled. That is one of the things that I struggle with from my PTSD is you can scare me so easy. It's almost funny sometimes. But yes, that's something that I'm still dealing with. I get startled very easily. And then the last one is having trouble concentrating or sleeping. just because of everything that's going on in your mind, in your body. So yeah, those are the 4 categories that the symptoms fall into. But, talking about the traumatic events, like everybody, like in the days after a traumatic event happens, everybody will experience these things. It's just normal. It's normal to feel scared, be startled easily, have struggle sleeping, or have trouble sleeping, struggle with concentration, in the days, following a traumatic event. That is just normal. However, to be diagnosed with PTSD, the symptoms must last for more than a month, and it must cause significant distress or problems in your daily life. And typically with PTSD, and this is just from the research I've done, symptoms, and every person is different again. So just remember, just because your PTSD don't show up this way doesn't mean that it's not PTSD. It could very well be, and that's why you need to go see a specialist, a counselor, a doctor that can help you identify if what you're going through is PTSD or not. But symptoms typically start about 3 months after the event. But in some cases, it can be years later. Like in some cases, people have experienced something as a toddler, and then their mind has completely blocked it out. They don't remember anything. And then all of a sudden, when they're in their 30s, they start getting these flashbacks of things that happen. And I'm like, oh my goodness, where does this come from? And then when they start delving deeper into it, they start unlocking these memories of what happened to them when they were a young child. So with that also, PTSD often occurs with other mental health conditions like depression, substance use, memory problems, physical and health problems, anxiety, as the previous episode talked about. PTSD often goes hand in hand with those conditions too. It just makes sense. If you've gone through a traumatic experience, you can start feeling depressed. And again, in some instances, it's normal to feel depressed after a traumatic experience. But again, if these symptoms last for longer than the average person, then that is where you need to start looking like, okay, maybe I need to see a doctor. Maybe I need to get help. Maybe I need to talk to somebody. So I found out that there are 4 conditions that's related to PTSD, and I'm thinking, just for the sake of time, I might actually do a part 2 of PTSD sometime down the line where I talk more about, these 4 conditions, and just in short, to quickly say what they are. So the 4 conditions: number 1 is acute stress disorder. Then number 2 is adjustment disorder. Number 3, disinhibited social engagement disorder. Yes, these things are a mouthful, y'all, just to let you know. And then reactive attachment disorder is number 4. So yes, I'm really wanting to do a lot more research on those because this is something new that I didn't even know that is, conditions related to PTSD. So I really want to go do some more research on that, and then I will come share my findings with you. So again, stay tuned. So with PTSD, the treatment options that you have, just like with anxiety, there's several different treatment options that can help before you take medication. Medication isn't always the answer to everything. There are alternative treatment plans that you can look into before you take medication. So the therapy options that there are is like CBT, the cognitive behavioral therapy. Then CPT is cognitive processing therapy. And then there's prolonged exposure therapy, trauma-focused CBT, and then the EMDR that I mentioned earlier on. And then, something else that, like just with anxiety, group therapy is always a great option, just because you will realize that you're not alone with what you are going through. You may not have had the same experience that someone else have had, but the PTSD shows itself in the same way. You're struggling with the same thing, struggling with sleep, struggling with, having bad dreams, or whatever the case might be, where if you share your story in a group setting, then you might be able to inspire someone else, or you might be able to learn from someone else what they've gone through. Now, as I said, medication is not always needed, or, is not, I wouldn't say that medication is the first line of defense, but in a lot of times, or a lot of cases, medication is needed just to help a patient to calm down enough to actually be able to face the trauma. Sometimes the traumatic experience was so severe that the person need to have some kind of sedative in their system in order to deal with what happened. And in those instances, medication is very helpful. And again, that's where you would need to partner with your doctor, with your therapist, with psychiatrist, and talk with them about what your options are and how to go about it. All of them are there to help you become a better person. And if you are with a doctor that doesn't want to talk about alternative treatment plans and they just want to, force pills down your throat, then you need to go find another doctor that's willing to look at the alternative methods, so that, you may only be on the medication for a little while, but that you actively deal with the trauma that you've gone through. Now, some of the alternative treatment options, I've mentioned quite a few, but there's things like acupuncture, there's yoga, there's animal-assisted therapy, like, there are therapy dogs, there's therapy horses that I've seen before. There are different animals that just helps people, to deal with what they're going through. And I've seen how they've used dogs, especially when the therapist is dealing with a child that has experienced a traumatic event. Sometimes the child has an easier time to share what happened to them with the dog than with the person, because to them, the person may trigger their PTSD or their anxiety. So therefore, the dog is more friendly to look at, or the dog is more friendly to talk to. So, and just, the dog being there also helps with grounding, because you're rubbing the dog and, playing with it. So that's why animal-assisted therapy is also a great option. So yeah, PTSD, just what I just talked about is still a very high level of what PTSD is, and we can talk for hours on what it is. But at the end of the day, if you have gone through a traumatic event or a traumatic experience, and you are reliving it day in and all the time, and you're thinking like, I might actually have a problem. I can't deal with this on my own. Reach out to somebody, reach out to people, talk to someone. There is help out there. There's free help, like I've mentioned in the previous episode, that somewhere that I've gone to in the past is Celebrate Recovery. And typically it's at churches, but that has helped me tremendously in the past to talk about what I have gone through and to hear other people's stories and to know, like, what, I'm not alone. What I'm going through is normal. It's okay. It's okay to not be okay today. It's okay to cry today, because, other people are going through it too, and they understand, and they dare to help, and they dare to offer support, and there's no judgment. So if you need someone to talk to, if you need a friend, if you need someone to go out to coffee with and just sit there and not be alone, reach out. I would love to come and sit with you and have coffee with you and just have a conversation with you. And, because life is hard. The life that we are living every day is hard. There's so much negative things in the world that we are bombarded with every day. Everybody's experiencing something bad. And the only way we can get through it is with each other. Doing it alone is not wise. And unfortunately, COVID has caused us all to kind of isolate ourselves. And I wish that we can get back to where we were before COVID, where we would go and visit each other all the time and do things together and, be able to talk to one another. So, and I'm hoping that with this podcast that we can just, even if it's just a few of us, get back to that pre-COVID normality. That would be amazing. So with that being said, the question for this week that I'm ending with is, what famous person have you met and what was your reaction when you met them? This might also be a fun one to talk about. And so yes, like I said before, guys, if you need to reach out, if you need to talk to someone, please call me, text me, find me on Facebook. I'm going to start an Instagram page here soon, so you can DM me on Instagram. But yes, reach out. I would be happy to come and sit with you and talk with you with whatever it is that you're going through. Because I understand, and there will be no judgment, because we all just need to deal with life together and hold hands and love on each other, and just remember that this too shall pass. And guys, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you on the next one. Bye.